Welcome to the Honest Health Podcast with your host, Jeffrey Burke. Honest Health brings you the brightest minds in the natural products industry, as well as athletes and entertainers. Jeff will keep you entertained and informed while educating on how to be successful on your healthy journeys. Now, here's your host, Jeffrey Burke.
Hello and welcome back to the Honest Health Podcast. My name is Jeffrey Burke. I am so glad you're back with me today. If it's your first time, welcome to the platform. If you're back with me again, like many of you have been with me for way too many decades that we don't want to mention, welcome back again. I'm always glad to have you here. Remember, tell your friends if they go to my webpage, drjeffreyburke.com, they can tap on the Honest Health logo. It'll take them to Spotify, where they can listen the audio version of all of the podcasts. If they tap on the YouTube logo, they'll go to YouTube and they can watch all of the interviews. Kind of a personal choice. Sometimes people do a mix of both, but we wanted to make both of them available. I think you're going to really enjoy the show today. We're going to be talking about something that has become more visible over the last couple years. And I got to tell you, and I don't care who you are, I don't care how much money you got in jingle in your pocket, I don't care how much the accolades you have, stress affects all of us. We're going to be talking about that today with my guest, Dan Chapman. Dan is a leading voice for natural remedies and a go-to media expert on herbs, supplements, and healthy eating to live a healthy and balanced life. He appears regularly on health and wellness media and in natural supplement publications and podcasts. His expertise, experience, and genuine passion to create lasting solutions comes together from a strong desire to move from health struggles to healthy living. Dan has become a leading voice as an advocate for holistic approach to wellness. Following Dan's formulation process, Redd Remedies, master herbalist crafts natural solutions for life's challenges, physical and emotional. Today, with nationwide distribution, Redd Remedies holds true to its pledge to provide customers with only the highest quality natural health solutions. And I'm telling you, if you have not experienced this line of products, you definitely want to take a look at them. I just recently ran into Dan down at Soho, down in Florida, and we kind of reconnected. And I was just so excited to have him here on the podcast. So help me welcome my guest. Hey, Dan.
Oh, it's so good to be here with you, Jeffrey.
Thank you so much. So stress. I got to tell you a funny story. I was in line at the grocery store a while back, and there was a lady in front of me with a little one, probably 3 years old. And the mom says, "Is everything okay?" And he put his hands on his hips and he looked up and he said, "I'm so stressed." And he was 3. And I just busted out laughing as she made eye contact with me, like, don't humor him. And I'm thinking to myself, so this is a word that's become very common. Is it real? Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so good. Not that the little man was stressed, but I've been talking about stress for decades, and I used to have to convince some people that they experience stress, and you really don't have to do that anymore. Everybody is acutely aware of the stress in their lives.
Well, and I think the other thing is stress is different for everyone. Mm-hmm. And stress can be positively motivating. I know when I've got a deadline and I'm stressed out and I'm getting a call that my article is due in like an hour and I'm just starting it and, that kind of stuff. I mean, that motivates me to get things done, but other stresses can be extremely debilitating in many parts of our life. So where should we start with stress? How do we look at stress, and how should we look at stress?
Yeah, actually, and I appreciate your initial framing, because sometimes, you hear the word stress and we are thinking all things negative, and that's not true, right? We need to have some level of stress in our lives. Otherwise, you'll never get that article done, right? I mean, so we need to have those deadlines, which put stress on us. But, even exercise, I mean, we're stressing our bones and our joints and our muscles, and that is part of how we get stronger and how we grow. And so there's an element of stress that is important for life. We're not looking for a stress-free life. The thing that I think is important, though, when it comes to stress, is to understand what its negative impact on the body can be. And so maybe here's a way to think about stress, is that stress costs the body something. So even good stress isn't free. I talk to a lot of people that feel like, oh, well, my body is just like, I just need to make more energy. And that's not the way the body works. You have a set amount of energy, like we'll call it 100%, right? You have 100% of energy available to you today. And your body is amazing at deciding how to prioritize the use of that energy, right? And so we exercise and we stress some muscles, and energy has to go to that muscle to repair it and to heal it and to grow it. That's a good use of energy. But that stress cost you something, right? And so that's okay. But even the negative stressors, what we have to understand is that the more stress that we have, the more energy gets reprioritized. And so if you eat a meal full of sugar, that's a stress. And your body is going to spend energy to figure out, what am I going to do to balance blood sugar right now? And we can just go down the list, right? All of these things that happen to the body as stress compounds, which then we would call chronic stress. And that's where we start to have some issues. And it might even be just the basics of that individual that says, I've got too much going on. I'm not going to take a nap. I'm not going to sleep 8 hours. I'm not going to whatever it may be to help my body rest and recover. And now even a healthy stress turned into a negative stress because you didn't allow your body the time to heal.
Well, let me ask you a question. To your point, would it be? It's like we're on a budget, and we've got a certain budget allowance that we can use, and we either utilize it or we completely exhaust it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I know we hate budgets, right? I mean, don't tell me what to do. But that's the confines of our body, and just the recognition of that is so good and so important. Of like, how do you want to spend the energy today? And right, and we would argue that some exercise, some movement is a good way to spend some of that energy, but maybe the sugar isn't. And that's just, a glaring example probably for most of us. But there's all kinds of other things that we can do to, I'll say, protect us from the negative impact of all of the different stressors around us, so our body can spend its allotted, energy well.
How do you explain to people the difference between a stressful lifestyle and anxiety, or a stressful lifestyle and being depressed? I mean, there's an interlinking there between a lot of these things, that they are kind of connected, kind of like metabolic syndrome is connected, things like diabetes and blood pressure and cardiovascular. I mean, these can be connected, but they are different. But there could be underlying tones that kind of runs under all of them. And maybe they have a little door that connects them together. But I don't think people know really where they are in the mix of things. And many people think that it's only a pharmaceutical fix.
That's right. And that's such a good question of like, where do we know that we are in a healthy place dealing with stress, or, starting to go down that unhealthy place of the same potential stressor? And I would say that it's really important to spend a couple of moments, maybe even every day, certainly, once a week, to just take an inventory of how am I feeling and what am I doing with that. And so if we look over the course of the week and we realize that, hey, I got a lot going on. This was a really stressful week, but my actions from that stress were all positive and good. Then I would say, hey, you're probably in a pretty good spot. But if your actions from that stress was sleeplessness, was a brain that's just going and going and going, where I just realized that I've spent the last hour recycling the same information over and over without a conclusion. Or, on the depressive side of that, if I find that I'm in a place where I don't know if I care, I don't want to, I just want to stay in bed or stay on the couch. So, I think our actions from that stress is really important to measure and spend time with, because we don't spend time there, right? We are generally a society that we've got more stuff going on. I've got all this other stuff I need to accomplish. And so you just put all that aside. And that is the beginning of a really negative cycle for us.
I have a friend, and she was a very high-powered lawyer and making lots of money, very successful, loved what she did, but it was wear and tearing on her body so dramatically that it was affecting every aspect of her life. And finally, we're having a conversation a couple years ago, and I said, you should just give it all. You got more money than you need. Give it all up. Go out to the country, have a farm, and grow organic vegetables, and really enjoy yourself. And I said it tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
So I heard from her like a year later and I said, "Where are you?" She goes, "I'm sitting on a chair in my garden." And I said, "Garden?" I said, "You live in a high rise." She goes, "Not anymore." So she bought a little farm, like 10 acres. She grows organic vegetables, happy, lost all the stress weight, got out of the bad relationship. Her blood pressure's normal. She feels fantastic. And I said, "I was just kidding," when I said that. She goes, "Well, tongue in cheek, whatever." She goes, "I took your advice and I've never been healthier or happier." So I think to myself, you can love what you do.
Hmm.
You could be very good and proficient and excel and be a leader in your industry, but you may not be doing all the right things for yourself.
No, that's absolutely true. And I only know a little bit of the schedule you got going on at the moment. That tends to be my style too. I
Yeah,
tend to be busy, and I like busy.
me too.
And there's an element of busy that's good, but then there can also be an element of busy where I just use that as an excuse to not, take care of myself, or
True.
or to even, deal with my own emotions, if you will, or to pay attention to all those other stressors going on around me. So, very, very important to find that balance, I think.
Well, and I think it affects so many different things. People don't connect things like poor digestion
Ah,
or
yes.
sleeplessness or temper changes or negativity and all these other factors. They could all be directly related to stress or offshoots of being under amazing amounts of stress. And I think a lot of people, they just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And I know that your supplement line is amazing, and I use way too many, but I love your products, and they all have a niche in my life that are important for me to deal with. So I found them to be very effective. So if someone is coming to you and they've made the admission, they're like, "I'm under a lot of stress. I'm changing my diet. I'm working on activity. I'm trying to be more positive. I'm trying to prioritize myself and sleep. But supplementarily, I don't know where to go, where to begin." And I think that's a hard starting place for a lot of people. I mean, they want the results, but when you walk into a health food store today, there's so many different choices and
Yeah.
there could be 100 different ways to go. How do you start? I mean, how do you counsel your people on starting?
Yeah, I always start by using a formula to help protect the brain and the body from the
Hmm.
negative impact of stressors. Because stress is pervasive. There is nothing in the body that hides from the negative impact of that stress. As we
True.
talked about, your body spends a lot of energy dealing with stressors. And we're going to feel that like throughout the body. So it can simply be digestion, it can be blood sugar, it can be hormones, it can be, allergies, respiratory function. I mean, stress alone will change the microbiome in your gut within the week. Just our feelings and our emotions related to that. And so it is pervasive. So I know that if we start by helping somebody deal with that stress response, no matter what it is that you complain about, the amplification from that stress will come down. And so we created 3 formulas for stress, and we've done that because we all know that we experience stress, but I think we also recognize that we're unique, different individuals, and we don't all respond the same way to the same stressors. So I found that there are 3 general stress types that if we spend just a moment and say, okay, do I fit in which one of these 3 camps? And then we put the right formula together for you. We've got true energy, at ease, and in joy. And so if we talk about the 3 stress types just really quickly, the first type is that individual who's probably you, right? Very busy, a lot going on. This person very well might be healthy, but they're the type that just goes and goes and goes until they don't anymore, right? And they just hit that wall.
That's
And
me.
so I call it the fatigue stress type. And again, it doesn't mean that you're tired every day,
No.
but you're the person who there's just like a lot going on physically. And so you might consume a lot of coffee or energy drinks if you're thinking about your listeners and so forth. So true energy is the formula for the fatigue stress type. The second stress type is that person that feels their stress much more emotionally. So nervousness, worry, anxiousness, fear. This person, their brain they might feel like, oh, it's ADHD. I can't think or focus or concentrate. The brain's just spinning and spinning and spinning. So that's the second stress type, much more emotion, brain focused. And at ease is the formula that we give for that individual. And then the last stress type is that person whose stress really wears on them more, like melancholy, depressive stress. This individual might struggle even with lack of motivation. So it's again, that person is like, I just don't even want to today. And so we need to lift that person up, and enjoy is the formula that we use for that person. And just so real quickly, all three of these formulas have a foundation of adaptogen herbs. I know that you and your listeners probably are familiar with adaptogens. We use adaptogens specific for those three different types of stress types, but that's the foundation. And then the formulas will nourish that person differently, because we need to support and nourish an individual who struggles with fatigue different than, anxiousness, different than, that melancholy, depressive stress. So that's the premise of the three stress types. And I found that when we give you the right formula, like we don't need all three. And I realize that we can go through all of these, three in a day, maybe even an hour sometimes. But if you spend just like literally 15 seconds, 30 seconds, and you think about, when I land, where do I generally go? Is it the fatigue? Is it the depressive? Or is it more that angst in the middle? And literally within 15 to 30 seconds, you should know where you land. And I'll give a little caveat for your listeners that are still wondering, where do I fit? I'm really not sure. It's at ease, okay? Because that's the brain that just is going, going, going. And there's too much, clutter, if you will, to even make a decision right now. So that's where I start. And we're going to be able to help everybody quickly there. And then we kind of uncover maybe what other health issues do we need to go on after that.
Now, a couple questions. Like, I use the at ease. I mean, it was made for me. And my question is, are people going to ask, if I'm already using a supplement regimen, can I add this in? Can I use it long term? And is the serving or dosage the same for everybody, or do you decide how to use it?
Great question. So these formulas are designed for daily long-term use, because all of us need to work on that stress response. If we look at the way that cultures around the world use adaptogens, these are the types of herbs that we're generally using daily throughout our lifetime. This is a part of their daily culture, because we're going to have different stressors today and next month and next year. So these are designed as daily formulas. They are formulated to nourish and support, not to push. I would never use, well, first of all, Redd Remedies, we don't use pushing herbs or stimulating type herbs. Not that they're necessarily all bad, but those are short-term herbs in my mind. So these are designed for daily use. And while it's hard to say, as a blanket statement that you can layer these on to anything else that you might be doing, you certainly can. But there's very likely some things that you're taking that you could get rid of. And that's part of the reason that I love, a formula to solve a problem, because we can accomplish so much with a really well done formula rather than, trying to figure out all these single ingredients and things to do.
How about age limits? It seems like our youth today, I mean, I look at teenagers today, and I think about when I was a teenager. Now, that was a very, 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 very long time ago, because I'm old now. But I think to myself sometimes, did we have these things? Maybe, but I don't know. I mean, it was weird. We didn't have the antibacterials. I mean, I literally lived in the country, and we get thrown out of the house in the morning, and you had to be back before the street light went on. And whatever you did during the day, you did. We didn't have things to do in our house. We had no electronics. We had wooden blocks and, nothing to work with. So we made our own enjoyment. But did we have we burn off our hyper energy? We did all that kind of stuff. But I look at the youth today, and I think it's changed dramatically after the pandemic. But I counsel a lot of like teenagers and young adults, and the mental part of their stress is like dramatically different. And there's a lot of problems. So my question is, can younger people use these, and what would be a cutoff, and would we adjust the dosage down?
Yeah, so all three of these formulas, in my mind, are designed for people teens to maturity. So the whole gamut, and generally in that age range, I wouldn't adjust. I don't think
Oh,
it's necessary. True Energy and Enjoy are both just 2 capsules a day. We don't
okay.
need like 6 and 8 of these a day. It's a very easy to use dosing. At Ease does have a little more flexibility there. You can take 1 or 2 up to 3 or 4 a day. So if you're, I said teen. So if you're a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old and you're petite, then maybe just the 2 a day is fine for you on At Ease. But I don't see a need to adjust that dosing based on that age range.
Are you someone who feels that they're best taken with food or in between meals? Does it matter?
These do not matter. And generally, if I have a formula that has some minerals I want with food, just because I want good acid in the stomach, just to help with the absorption, um, and maybe if there's some herbs in there that has a potential for causing stomach upset, but these are gentle formulas, if you will, that are very, very nourishing on their own, and whether you take it with or without food is not going to generally make a difference here.
And I love that because, you could be out, you could be at a meeting, you could be somewhere and you're just like, ugh, just like overwhelm is
Yeah,
coming at you. And you're like, oh, I got to go eat something or something to be able to do.
yeah,
You can just do it and enjoy the benefits because I know how I feel when I use these. I
yes,
mean, I use them twice a day like clockwork. I take them in the morning, I take them in the late afternoon. And no matter where I am, what time zone, I do it. And
yeah.
I've done it for a very long time. And it really just kind of is
Yeah,
my
well,
breath and
especially at
my
ease,
focus. Yeah.
as you mentioned. I talk about at ease as providing alert relaxation.
Hmm.
And if your brain is doing this, if we can quiet your brain, we don't want to put you to sleep. It's daytime, right? We're just going to quiet the chatter so you can be clear and focused in your thinking. And when we do that, energy levels actually go up. And so that it's a great formula for that.
I call it energetic calm.
There you go.
And
I love it.
it really does well. You've done a beautiful job with this, and I think that there's a lot of people out there that are still trying to find their place. And you know, what do you think about sleep? I mean, I think that sleep is one of the most undervalued, underrespected things that we do. Most people just think it's something we need to do, but they have no idea how important it is for restoring, rebuilding, rejuvenating, regenerating, all these things. And people say, well, I'll get caught up on the weekend. You don't.
You
If
don't.
we don't have some restrictions and some
Yeah.
organizational skills, we don't. But I think sleep is amazingly important. Someone asked me one day, they said, Jeff, I've tried everything natural for sleep. And I've really done the gamut, I eat a Mediterranean diet. I just don't sleep. And I had to go to a pharmaceutical.
Mm,
And he said, what do you think? And I said, well, sleep is so important that if you tried everything that is available and you've really truly done that, sometimes that's what it's for. It's made for those people because I'd rather have you sleeping than not sleeping because
right.
everything else is going to start to fall apart. But it's an issue and a lot of people don't talk about it. But when we have one-on-one combinations, I'm sure as you do with people, they usually let their guard down and they'll tell you, I just don't sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a huge problem today. And so each of these 3 formulas, while they're not sleep formulas, when
Hmm.
you have a better day that is more balanced, you will have a more restful sleep at night. So
Hmm.
all 3 of these will help your body, I'll say, prepare for sleep, because we prepare for sleep when we wake up in the morning. The day will determine a part of our night. And then we do also have a sleep formula called At Ease PM. And we
Hmm.
named it At Ease PM after at ease during the day, because I know that stress type will be probably the main one that will struggle with sleep at night. At Ease PM can be layered on top of any one of these 3, but in almost every case, it's taken along with At Ease, again, because that person needs a little bit more, I'll say, nourishment to create healthy neurotransmitters, so my
Yep.
brain is healthy and balanced and functioning. And a balanced brain is a brain that allows me to be quiet and go to sleep, right? So this is a formula that's going to quiet the brain and the body so I can get in deep sleep and stay there. You won't wake up feeling groggy. There's no melatonin in here. I'm not a melatonin fan. I'm a fan of giving the building blocks so we can produce serotonin, which will
Yep.
then help us to produce melatonin, because that's how
Yep.
the process works, right?
Yep.
Um, And so at ease PM can be used by itself, but it also layers really nicely on top of, true energy, at ease, or enjoy.
I was at a council meeting. It was like a big lecture years ago, and the gentleman was talking about sleep, and he was talking about people take the time to journal. And, every single night, write down an affirmation, write down a note, write down a thought for the day. And his idea was it's nice to look back at those. He goes, but the main reason that I recommend it is it gets it out of your head for the
Yeah.
moment and onto a piece of paper. So it's not running around your head when you're trying to sleep. And, it never made sense. But then I obviously started journaling years and years ago. And sometimes I just write a paragraph.
Yeah.
It's nothing more than that. And now I don't even write it anymore. I just type it on my iPad. But I mean, sometimes it does make a difference, a thought for the day. And also it gets things on paper that you might have forgotten.
Yeah.
And you now have it on paper. So what do you think about the idea of an affirmation, a bedtime affirmation, or that idea?
I think it's powerful. I think it's absolutely powerful. As you said, to be able to make a couple of comments about the day, to set that aside. I like the idea of finding something during that day that I'm really grateful for or thankful for, and writing that down. Maybe even, making a note of something that you want to think about through the nighttime, right? Because when we sleep and when we dream, I mean, our brain is active and working, even though I think a lot of times people don't remember it when we wake up in the morning. But I think that is a powerful way to be able to separate the day from the night and say, okay, that was daytime stuff. Now at night, this is some of my time, right? So I'm grateful for this. I'm thankful for this. This good thing happened. I'm looking forward to this tomorrow. And then we go to bed and we let those things be. So I think, and there's something about writing it down, whether you're typing or writing, you will find, if you've never done this before, that stuff will show up on that paper that you never thought about, or at least didn't think you thought about.
True. Very true. It's interesting. I think our electronic devices and our social media and stuff, although I love it, and I love being able to have the ease of doing what I do, I think we all need to start setting parameters. And I actually caught myself, probably a while back, and I was in my studio where I am now, and I'm doing my business, and I powered everything down, and I'm like, all right, I'm getting tired of that. I would go into the bedroom, and I'd get all comfortable, got the dogs and everything, and then I lay down and I pick up my phone and I start all over again. And I thought to myself, you just ruined that relaxation mode, and now I'm wide awake. And
Yeah.
so, sometimes you have to set parameters, that the bedroom's for intimacy and the bedroom's for sleep. That's what it's for. If you have work to do, then go back to your library, your office, and get things
Absolutely.
done. But we have to be able to have those kind of parameters, and I think it's hard for us to do that. We have a trouble. I mean, I literally misplaced my phone a couple of weeks ago for like 6 hours, and I lost it. I mean, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't call somebody, and
Yeah.
I have no numbers memorized anymore.
Right.
And I mean, everything's on a button, and I finally found it. It was like the world was saved at that moment. So that's when I really started to see the connection. And I think a lot of us have it.
Yeah. Well, and I think at night too, I mean, pick up a good book and read that, and,
Yeah.
and don't do it on a electronic device that
No.
has apps. Okay. So, if you've got a device without apps, maybe that's fine. But I say pick up the old school book, just so there's, no ability to forget and go check, your social accounts at night. You don't want to do that. So that's the
Agreed.
great way to fall asleep.
I travel a lot, and I always take books with me because I'm an avid reader, and I love to read. And there's something to me about turning a page. And I know that may sound juvenile or like a child, but I think I love it. I love the idea of turning pages. I love the smell of a book. I mean, there's just something about the entire mood of having a book in my hands and finishing the book and being apprehensive about the beginning and the ending and all that kind of stuff. I think it does a lot for your mind. I think it helps your emotions. I think it can actually help your physical health. It helps your awareness. And to your point, I think it's a good idea to remind people to pick up a book.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's powerful. And I like the old school book myself. I like to be able to pick it up and, fold the page down, know where I'm at, and underline stuff. And so, yeah.
My mother is 90, and she reads close to a book a day. And she has ever since I've known her. And so many books. from so many libraries. And she's so funny because she'll take a book and she'll take a pencil and she'll put a little dot in the inside of the cover. So then she'll go to the library and she'll go, oh, read it. And I'm like, oh my, I mean, I've never seen anybody read. She reads well over 300 books a year. You know, she
Wow.
just continually is a reader. And we have Alzheimer's and dementia in our family, but she is sound and amazingly,
Yep.
she's got a lot of neurotransmitters and a lot of neural pathways being in there
Yeah.
all the time. So, you
No,
know,
I
I
think
wish we would
that's
do more. And I think a lot of us have forgotten the art of reading a book.
yeah, that's powerful. It's wonderful, and it's good to have that purpose.
Where do you, two things I want to touch on before we're done. Diet for the stressful person.
So there, I would be careful not to say, oh, you got to overhaul your whole diet, because sometimes that feels overwhelming.
Yep.
So for maybe your listeners that are saying, I know my diet isn't good, I know I need to make changes, like where do I start? And I'd say just have the frame of mind that you're just going to do something small. And so here's a couple of small things. Start your day by drinking a glass of water. So I have a glass of water on my nightstand. I've been doing that since I was a little boy. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I drink some water. So that's the best way to start your day. You can go have your coffee later on. Nothing wrong with a good, cup of coffee, but start with some water. It's a great habit. And then I would say, look at some of the other things that you eat throughout the day and cut back on something that has sugar. And so I don't know what that something is for you. If you're a soda drinker, start there. If you're an energy can drinker, start there. But it might also be, chips or some other sort of a treat, something that has sugar in there. And I'm not saying to eliminate, because that might seem overwhelming,
Right.
but do something to cut back on sugar. I think sugar is potentially the worst drug that we consume. It causes destruction in the body. It literally destroys our body and our health.
And that's a really good point. Baby steps, because we do get overwhelmed very much. And the world is overwhelming right now. I mean, one of the worst things I think people should do, the first thing to cut out of their life is to turn off the news.
Yes.
That's a great way to stress your day out. I could be having the most perfect day and I will turn on the news and in like 5 minutes, I'm like, oh my Lord. And I got to turn it off because it just ruins the course of my day.
Yeah.
I'm one of those old school people that used to love the 11 o'clock news. They would give you what was going on, no opinions, and you would create your own opinion. I like the old school. So
that's right. Yeah, that's a school we haven't seen in a while, but yes.
No, in a long while. Now, what about exercise? Are you an advocate of hitting the gym or are you an advocate of just going for a walk?
Yeah, so I've never been a gym guy. Well, maybe since I was, college days, but I like to be outside. I like to breathe the air. I like to see the trees. And I also think that literally going for a nice, long, brisk walk is really powerful and impactful. So I don't think we have to have the idea that I've got to spend 45 minutes in the gym or I've got to be able to run a mile. Our body has to move. And if we're not ready for even a long brisk walk, I mean, we literally just sit there. I mean, doing this, right? We know this moves my lymphatic system, and I'm just sitting here on a podcast right now, or I can tighten up my legs because by moving my muscles moves my lymphatic system. Moving my lymphatic system helps my immune system move, gets toxins out of the body. And so we just have to make sure that our bodies are moving. And so you might even stand still and just bounce a little bit in place. Those are the simple little things. So even if we are going to the gym, even if we are running, if you're like me and you sit in a chair like this too many hours during the day, you've got to have regular moments where you're just moving to keep that lymphatic system going. So take a short 2-minute, 3-minute walk around, bounce around a little bit, hop, dance, sing, have a good time, right? That just kind of gets you going. So it can be those little habits throughout the day, in addition to the fact that, yes, some strength training I do think is important for all of us to keep our muscles strong and healthy, because we know that as we get a little bit older, it's harder and harder to build muscle. And we want to make sure that we maintain it as well as possible. So, if we get sick or some life event happens to us, that we've got some decent muscle as a good starting point.
What message would you like to leave people with about Redd Remedies and about your company and about your philosophy?
I'll leave you with, I have some rules that I believe are true about the body, and they're simple. But the last rule I'll leave you with, and that is that we have the capacity to heal. I've met so many people that have been sick for a long time, and you start to believe that, well, maybe this is just the way my body is, or maybe it's just this is the problem that I have. My family's had this problem for generations, and so that's just the way I am. And I don't think we need to buy into that lie. Our bodies have the capacity to heal. If we look at the inside of our body, every cell in our body has a shorter lifespan than we have. And that means that cells are dying every day and new cells are being created every day. And so with the right nutrition, managing stress, keeping some toxins out, when our body creates those new cells today, we can create new, healthy, vibrant, high-functioning cells, which means we can absolutely have a better next week and a better next month. So believe that you can heal. Do not buy the lie that you're just sick and that's the way that life is for you.
And last question, do you think stress is something we can conquer?
I don't know that we can conquer it, but we can certainly live in the midst of stress in a way that's still healthy and good. And I think part of that is just being present, taking that inventory of why do I feel this way? And even if it isn't a healthy feeling, like, why do I feel this way? What's really going on? And is it real, or am I just manufacturing something maybe out of fear or an unknown? A lot of stuff happens out of fear and the unknown. And so when we live life like that, there's stress all around. I can't change everything, but I can have an impact on myself, and I can also love the people around me. And I think that's important. We are designed to be in relationship with other people. And if my view there is what I want and what I need, that view is probably not going to be real good. But if my view is how can I help you and how can I love you today, I'm going to have a better day.
I love that. No, I think there's a lot of us on that same platform as well. And I think that life is really short. And I think we all need to start, taking an inventory of all the things we've already done and achieved, because sometimes we forget about those because we're so busy looking so far down the road. One of my friends said before, there's a small window in the back of your car and a big windshield in the front, because you don't need to remember as much as behind you, and you need to focus on all the wonderful things coming your way. And I think that that's really, really true. But hey, Dan, thank you so much for being here today. And can I have you back again?
Oh, it would be my great pleasure. So enjoy my conversations with you, my friend.
Thank you so much. Hey, if you're tuning in, this is definitely a podcast you want to listen to. Maybe you're catching the end of it or just part of it. Listen to the whole thing. Remember to go to my webpage, drjeffreyburke.com, tap on the Honest Health logo, go to Spotify and listen to the audio. You can also tap on the YouTube logo and watch the whole interview and enjoy both of them. I think you will. And also check out all the other YouTube videos that are there and the other Spotify audios. And remember, this is kind of new to me after doing radio for 42 years, but if it says like, love, whatever, click them all. So we want to have a lot of people, getting these messages, because I'm bringing you the best minds in the industry. And if you take away one good point from every podcast, it could change your life. That's what it's all about. Dan, thanks again for being here today.
Thank you, my friend.
You all be good. Take care of yourself, and God bless.
Stay tuned for more information from the Honest Health Podcast with Jeffrey Burke. And make sure to check back often for interviews and conversations from the guests we all want to hear from. I'm John the Announcer. Thanks for listening.